Pastor Chika was married to a very beautiful wife, called Bella, but they were without a child for 5 years. Eventually, Bella became pregnant. Pastor Chika was overwhelmed. At last he was going to be a father. 9 months passed. Their baby, Isaac, came, but the shock wave transmitted by the DNA result of the child's paternity left everyone speechless. Pastor Chika wasn't the child's father. Bella, on the other hand, had not been with any other man apart from her husband, Pastor Chika. How could this be? This was the question everyone tried unraveling. Nevertheless, it would shock you to know that Pastor Chika was more to be blamed. He had skeletons in his cupboard. Watch to the end to find out what Pastor Chika did, and who was responsible for his wife's pregnancy. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and give this video a like. Turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss out on more interesting stories like this one. Now the story begins. Pastor Chika preached purity with fire in his bones, but at home, he battled the silence of an empty womb. His wife, Bella, smiled like a first lady on Sunday, but cried into her pillow each night for the child she couldn't bear. For 4 years, they fasted, sowed seeds, laid hands, anointed walls, but their bedroom remained a tomb of unanswered prayers. On the 5th year, Bella vomited in the morning and wept with joy. She was pregnant. The church erupted like revival had come. Testimonies flew from altar to altar. Pastor Chika danced in tongues, declaring God's faithfulness. But hell was clapping in the shadows. The baby bump grew, and so did whispers. Bella's mother warned her to stop meeting with a certain brother after evening choir rehearsals, but Bella swore it was just prayer sessions. That so-called brother was tall, quiet, and full of strange visions. He disappeared a month before her pregnancy news, and no one questioned why. When the child was born, it had a mole on its left eye, exactly like the brother who vanished. Pastor Chika held the baby, kissed it, and named him Isaac. But in secret he sent strands of hair for DNA testing. The results returned wrapped in confusion. Pastor Chika was not the father. Chika knelt at the altar for 3 nights without food. On the 4th night he anointed his eyes with oil and told himself he would forgive. He returned home, looked Bella in the eyes, and said, "God gave us a son. Let him stay ours." Bella fell to the floor, screaming she never slept with another man. She swore by heaven. She only spoke of a weird occurrence she remembered of herself blacking out after a deliverance night in the youth pastor's office, and woke up sore and confused. Chika didn't flinch. He nodded slowly. So it was rape by an anointed hand, or what should we call it? The accused youth pastor, now running his own church in another state, was summoned quietly. He denied nothing. He said he'd been possessed, claimed he thought it was a demonic test sent by God, and begged for cleansing, not judgment. Chika gripped a bottle of anointing oil but poured it over the man's head instead of breaking it on his skull. No one could understand Chika's calmness in the face of this commotion. Bella, upon hearing the full truth, went to confront the man who used her vulnerability as a prophecy. She looked into his eyes, spat once, then said, "I forgive you. May your demons turn against each other." The church was divided. Some called Bella defiled, others called her Job's wife redeemed. Chika lost half his congregation in one Sunday, but kept preaching as though the crowd doubled. What happened next shocked even heaven. 2 weeks after the scandal, Pastor Chika mounted the pulpit and said, "God told me to invite the man who impregnated my wife to preach here next Sunday." A wave of gasps swept through the sanctuary like wildfire. Sister Inkachi fainted. Elder Damien stood up and walked out, mumbling curses under his breath. Next Sunday, the youth pastor, now simply called Brother Uche, walked into the church in a plain white shirt, no collar, no titles, and eyes red like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. He climbed the altar with hands shaking, and behind him, Bella sat in the front row, holding baby Isaac. Uche began with a confession that didn't spare himself. He told the church about his lust, his manipulation, and how he weaponized spirituality to touch what wasn't his. "I used prayer as a cover," he said, "because I knew you all feared the man who speaks in tongues more than the one who speaks truth." He then broke into tears and fell to his knees, asking for forgiveness from the church, from Bella, from God, and from the man he wronged. Pastor Chika stood beside him, raised him to his feet, and said, "We have all played God at some point. Today, let's play Christ. The congregation was stunned. Some cried. Some left permanently. But a few returned the next week with more chairs for those curious enough to see what madness this church would do next. But not everyone was clapping. A prophet from a neighboring church wrote an open letter, calling Chika a disgrace to the pastoral mantle. This kind of forgiveness, he thundered on his live stream, is demonic tolerance. Chika replied during Bible study. If grace makes you uncomfortable, maybe you've never truly needed it. The letter sparked online debates. Videos went viral. Bloggers feasted. Some said Bella was bewitched. Others believed she'd known all along. A scandal this delicious had too many tongues to silence. One night, a brick crashed through the church window with a note tied to it. Step down or fall down. That Sunday, Chika preached on the valley of betrayal and told the church that he would not step down. I have already fallen into grace. But the next betrayal came not from outside. It came from within the Council of Elders. The Council of Elders had always stood like granite behind Chika, until his forgiveness became louder than their silence. Elder Damien, the oldest among them, called a secret meeting one Thursday night. They sat under the old mango tree behind the church, whispering like conspirators. "We are the backbone of this ministry," Damien hissed. "And the head has gone soft." Another elder, Sister Veronica, added, "Forgiveness is good. But this is scandal baptized in honey. We're bleeding members, tithes have dropped, and people are saying our altar is stained." They drafted a letter on church letterhead, formal, polite, lethal. It requested Pastor Chika take a 6 months spiritual sabbatical, citing emotional fatigue and doctrinal instability. They planned to read it aloud after Sunday service. Chika got wind of it the night before. But he did something none of them saw coming. He arrived at church early, dressed in plain clothes, and sat in the back pew. When service started and Elder Damien walked to the pulpit with the letter in hand, Chika stood up and said, "Let me read it for you." The congregation froze. He walked to the front, took the letter from Damien's trembling hands, and read every word aloud. When he finished, he smiled and said, "You don't need 6 months to silence me. You only need 6 seconds of courage. Who wants this church? Take it." Then he stepped down from the altar, walked to Bella, picked up baby Isaac, and headed for the exit. Silence thundered in his wake. 3 days later, the church Facebook page announced Chika's resignation. The video of him reading the letter went viral. Critics called it weakness. Others called it strength. But Chika never responded. He disappeared from public view. Rumors flew like bats in a cave. Some said he'd left the country. Others swore they saw him at a bus stop, handing out tracts. Bella refused interviews. She moved out of the pastorium and lived in a modest flat with Isaac, allowing Chika some time away to clear his head, while Bella started selling soaps she made at home. Then came the letter. Handwritten. No return address. It arrived at Bella's doorstep one morning, wrapped in brown paper. Inside it were photos, old grainy pictures of a much younger Chika with a different woman. The letter read, "Your husband once did to me what was done to you. Ask him about Sister Franca." Bella's heart sank into ice. Bella stared at the letter for hours, her hands trembling, mind racing through corridors she never knew existed. Who was Sister Franca? The name echoed like a forgotten hymn, vaguely familiar, painfully hollow. That night, when Isaac fell asleep on her chest, she called Chika's number. It rang out. She tried again. Nothing. By morning, she was at Mama Ibele's shop, the oldest woman in the old church, a walking archive of scandals, secrets, and forgotten weddings. Bella didn't even greet her. "Mama, who is Sister Franca?" The old woman froze, dropped her chewing stick, and whispered, "Ha! So the ghosts have returned." Sister Franca, as Mama Ibele told it, was a choir lead in Chika's first church 10 years ago. Vibrant, anointed, beautiful, and pregnant by Chika. But instead of owning it, Chika accused her of seduction, spiritual manipulation, and cast her out publicly during deliverance service. She disappeared shortly after. No one ever saw her again. Bella felt the floor shift beneath her. She went home and sat for hours, staring at her husband's old Bible. That night, she dug through his locked drawer, the one he always kept shut. Inside, she found 2 things: A photograph of a young woman with a gentle smile, and a letter written in Chika's handwriting. Franca, I'm sorry I betrayed you to protect my robe. I was scared of losing my calling. But I lost my soul instead. If you ever read this, I pray you forgive me, even if I don't deserve it. Bella wept, not out of anger, but out of understanding. She had forgiven a man who defiled her, but had been living with a man who once defiled another and buried it beneath scripture. She called Chika again. This time he answered. Bella, he said, voice hollow. Who was Franca? Silence. Then a sigh so deep it cracked the line. I hoped the past would stay buried. I hoped I'd earned my redemption. But I guess God is writing the full story now. They agreed to meet at the old church, where it all began. Chika arrived first. No robe. No Bible. Just him and his scarred conscience. Bella came with the letter in her hand and a storm in her heart. I forgave a man who hurt me, she said, but I've been living with a man who once hurt someone just like me. Chika nodded slowly. I was a coward in pastoral robe. I didn't just fail her. I crucified her on the altar of my ambition. Bella's voice shook. Then go find her. Not for me. For yourself. For your calling. For the boy we're raising who deserves to know what a real man does after making a mess. The next morning, Chika vanished again, but this time, with purpose. Chika took nothing but a satchel, a Bible, and the only photograph he had of Franca. He went from city to village, church to hospital, knocking on doors that creaked with shame and slammed with memory. Most people hadn't heard of her. Some remembered the idioma he asked if a few had some clues. Franca? The girl who got disgraced by a pastor? She moved to Enugu, I think, and started a school or an orphanage. Enugu was loud with traffic and quiet with secrets. Chika searched for 3 days. On the 4th, he found her by accident, or perhaps by divine setup, teaching arithmetic under a mango tree to a group of orphans in torn uniforms. She had aged gracefully. There was a quietness in her spirit, a kind of peace you can only earn after walking barefoot through fire. Chika didn't speak at first. He just watched from a distance until one of the children called out, "Auntie, that man is crying." She turned. Their eyes met. The world paused. She didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She simply stared as if the ghost of a sermon long buried had stepped back into her life. Chika knelt before her in the red dust. I came to return what I stole, your dignity, your truth, your voice. I have nothing to offer but my shame and a chance to make things right. Franca was silent for a long time. Then she laughed, not with joy, but the bitter laugh of someone who'd waited too long for an apology they stopped believing would come. I cried for years, she said. You preached while I bled. You built a ministry on the ashes of my pain. I know, Chika whispered. And I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm asking for your judgment. She paused. Then said words that tasted like fire and honey. You don't need my judgment. You've been carrying it since the day you called me Jezebel in front of a crowd that sang with you. Tears fell freely from Chika's face. But I forgive you, she added, voice soft, firm. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to let your sin keep me chained. I'm free now. And you go free yourself. Chika left Enugu without taking a picture, without asking for her number, without recording her voice. Some things are too holy to trap. Back home, Bella was waiting not with anger, but with a quiet resolve. Chika stood outside the flat for nearly 30 minutes. His hand hovered over the doorknob like it was the trigger of a loaded gun. Behind that door was not just Bella, not just Isaac, there was truth, waiting to confront him in the shape of his own shame. He opened the door gently. Bella was on the floor, folding Isaac's clothes. She didn't look up. I'm back, Chika said, voice cracked. I heard, she murmured. Chika stepped in. Silence wrapped around them like a third presence. Isaac was asleep in the next room. I found her, he said. She's alive. Teaching children. In peace. Bella finally looked at him. Her eyes, always sharp, now dulled by exhaustion and layered forgiveness. Did she hate you? She pitied me, Chika replied. Forgave me with the same strength I used to destroy her. Bella nodded slowly, stood, and walked past him into the kitchen. So, you must be hungry. But Chika didn't move. I don't deserve normalcy. Bella's voice came from the sink, slow and clear. None of us do. That's the point. She returned with a plate of yam and stew, set it before him, then pulled a chair and sat across. Her eyes never left his. I read the letter again today, she said. Not frank as yours. Chika blinked. The one you wrote but never sent. The apology. The one you buried instead of delivering. He lowered his gaze. Bella leaned forward. You knew how to apologize. You just never practiced it on me. Chika looked up, pain slicing through his voice. But Bella, I have always. Don't explain, she said. You always explain. Always preach. But for once, just sit in what you caused and listen to me. He did. The silence between them was long, heavy, sacred. Then she said, You want to rebuild us? Start here. As Chika. Not a pastor. Not a priest. Not redeemer. Just Chika. And so he did. Over the next few months, Chika didn't return to preaching. Not even once. Instead, he washed Isaac's feeding bottles. He walked him to the local clinic for vaccinations. He sat in on Bella's small soap-making workshops and took notes like a student. Every Saturday, he cooked, not well, but he tried. The community watched from afar, confused. The pastor now buys pepper in the market himself? Some whispered. I saw him carrying baby things with his wife, another murmured. No security. No Bible. Just man and woman. But what shook them the most was what happened one Sunday evening. The church elders, those same ones who once pushed him out, came knocking literally. Dressed in somber clothes, with caps in hand and humility heavy on their faces. Bella answered the door. Is he in? Elder Damien asked. He's bathing the baby, she replied. They waited awkwardly. Then Chika emerged, Isaac wrapped in a towel. You're early, he said. Damien cleared his throat. We came to say we were wrong. You led with grace when we led with pride. And if you're willing, we want you back. Chika looked at them for a long moment. Then shook his head. No, he said simply. You don't need me in that pulpit. You need to sit in it and remember what it's like to bleed quietly. Let someone else preach. Let someone who's not afraid to confess their shadows show others how to heal. One of the elders, Sister Veronica, began to cry. Then help us learn, she said. And so a new church began. Not a building. Not a ministry. A living room. A gathering of broken people who sat in circles and told the truth. Chika and Bella started holding evenings of truth, where people came not to be impressed, but to confess. One day, after the meeting, a young woman lingered behind. She approached Bella with slow steps. I want to say something, she whispered. Bella smiled. Go ahead. The girl swallowed her saliva. I was raped last year by my youth pastor. I never told anyone because I thought it was my fault. Bella pulled her into a hug. No scripture. No sermon. Just a long, warm embrace. You are not alone, Bella whispered. And you never were. Years passed. Isaac grew with laughter in his voice and calm in his eyes. He became a boy of questions. Mama, why don't we go to the big church with lights and cameras? Because we chose the one where truth lives, not performance. Papa, why did people leave our house crying but smiling? Chika knelt beside his son. Because sometimes, tears wash away lies better than soap. Isaac smiled, confused but content. And their home, though not perfect, but purified, truth birthed grace, grace birthed forgiveness, and forgiveness became the altar where love made its final stand. Moral lessons. Do not do to other people what you wouldn't want others to do to you. Learn to forgive those who offended you. That is the only way you too will be forgiven. Please, use the comment section to let us know what you learned from this story, and don't forget to let us know where you are watching from. Thank you for watching.